The Nick Caserio philosophy. What is it? Should we know? Do we know? What do we know about the general manager of the Houston Texans? I find this to be an interesting discussion. We've had it throughout the offseason. We really had it the last couple of years. And I'll just say this 7 days into free agency, or now we're on the 8th day. I don't know how you can't be pleased with what Nick Caserio has done with this roster. He's added depth in major areas. He has attacked contracts a certain way, and there's a signing that he made yesterday that I think should be the most encouraging thing for Texans fans moving forward. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. Let's start with these 2-year contracts that some people have kind of complained about when it comes to how the Texans have attacked free agency at this point. Nick Caserio was on Sports Radio 610 yesterday. He was asked about these 2-year contracts, and this is what the general manager of the Houston Texans had to say about these. And it kind of repeats what I've been saying about these 2-year contracts that people seem to get up in arms about.
The number of players that signed either multi-year contracts or even, let's call it 2 to 3 year contracts, and actually make it to the end of that deal, like that number, it's probably not as many as you think. So again, it's about allocation of resources. It's about making good, smart decisions, and it's about adding players that you feel can help your football team. So philosophically, every team has their own approach, and there's 32 teams that are going to handle a little bit differently. Some years a little bit different than others, but ultimately, we're just trying to do what we feel is in the best interest of our team and the organization.
There's a lot of 4-year contracts that don't make it to year 3. So I actually agree with Caserio there. And at this point in time, with where the Texans are, you're trying to figure out how good your coaching staff can develop players. You're trying to kind of churn guys in, quality guys, not like the Rex Burkhead, Kamu Grugier-Hill, Justin Britt type of churn, but you're trying to churn guys in. I had no issue with the 2-year contract. Would I have liked Nick Caserio to find a center? I'm sure, and I'm sure he would have liked to have found a center as well. I don't think they found that yesterday in Dieter, who didn't play an offensive snap last year. But what they did do, and I think this is the most encouraging thing, and I think it's really hard to talk about Nick Caserio and what his philosophy is at this point. We're learning because of the unique situation in which he inherited. Now, he has made some mistakes. I'm sure we can go through and talk about some mistakes, but the best thing he did was the way he handled the Deshaun Watson trade, and that might have been the most important. But when you look at what he inherited, the hellacious situation that he inherited, I don't know that developing a philosophy right off the top at the start of, say, like the 2021 season would have been beneficial, because there's no way that would be the same philosophy once you clear up the cap space, once you get through the $75 million in dead cap last year. And once you get more assets, you know what your draft equity is going to be, and you start to develop young players. It would be kind of troubling if we already knew Nick Caserio's philosophy. But what he did yesterday that I think people should be encouraged by as we go through this fluid process of trying to figure out what Nick Caserio is about, trying to figure out, quite frankly, if he's worth a damn as a general manager. He did a good job getting through the mud. Some people believe that anyone could have gotten through the mud if they'd been given, that task. Although I don't know how many people would have handled the Watson situation the way that he did, given he was handcuffed. But the thing that he did yesterday that I think is the most encouraging is he adjusted to the market. Some people have looked at Nick Caserio as if, he's only going to give 2-year contracts. He's not going to adjust. Some people look at him as kind of robotic because his delivery can be robotic at times. And at times you just kind of, I don't want to say roll your eyes, but you think this guy's, he's just kind of a program guy, kind of a football guy. But the Texans yesterday, what they did was they adjusted to the market, and they brought in a borderline elite player at what he does in Dalton Schultz. The Texans did not go into this offseason. They wanted to address the tight end position for sure, but they didn't go to this offseason saying, you know what, we want to give Dalton Schultz a 3-year, $36 million deal, which is what some of the reports out of Dallas, credible reports, say that he rejected. They didn't say that, and they probably weren't going to do that. So they had a line in the sand. But a week into free agency, as the market kind of played out, You saw what happened with the Jags last year when they took on Evan Ingram at 1 year, $9 million. You saw New England kind of trying to do that same thing with Mike Gesicki. They looked at this market and they said, man, nobody wants Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz has been one of the 4, 5, 6 most productive receiving tight ends in this game. We have a young guy in Quitoriano. We have a guy in Andrew Beck who can do a lot of versatile things. He can line up at multiple positions. And we probably, I would assume, like some of the guys in this draft. It's a very good tight end class to the point where we were talking about at 33, do the Texans take a tight end? But they saw Dalton Schultz out there in the market. They saw the cost. They saw that it wasn't like a long-term investment. If he does well, you can do what Jacksonville did with Ingram and you can franchise tag him. He's 26 years old when they adjusted to the market. So if we're trying to figure out Nick Caserio's philosophy, again, I think it's impossible to figure it out. I do think if you're a Texans fan, the most encouraging thing for Nick Caserio, on top of the players that he's added, still got some work to do and still got a lot of draft picks to do it. You got to be pretty. You don't got to do anything, but I'm pretty optimistic about the way in which he adjusted to this market and brought in a prime asset. The Singletary thing, we'll see what happens there. You do have probably the 2 best running backs that you've had on this roster in the last 4 years, maybe number 1 and 2. But I'd still think, running back is something that they should probably look into, maybe like another long-term option. But as far as the tight end goes, tight end, I don't know if we can call it a position of strength yet because we don't know what Quitoriano is going to do and we don't know what Beck's going to do. But you got a hell of a player, and you did so without being, missionary and stiff and committed to a certain thing. You adjusted. You cleared up money with some of the moves that you made, and then you went out there and got Dalton Schultz. So do we know Nick Caserio's philosophy? Probably not. Are we learning about it? Yes. Am I doing the Phil Simms thing where he interviews himself? Yes. But final question, should you be encouraged by what you've seen from Nick Caserio the last 8 days? My answer would be hell yes. And if you're not, please tell me in the comments what you don't like and what the F you expected outside of what Nick has done. Subscribe, listen to me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Sports Radio, 610 Central. We got John McClain in today. It's going to be a very active day and a very active day on the internet. It's been an active day for the active week for the Houston Texans, or the 3rd day of the week. Sunday was active. Monday was more active. And we had this, no matter what happens, whether it's active, whether it's quiet, when it comes to this Texans game, and it comes to trying to figure out what the F Nick Caserio is, we're all in this together.